Is multiculturalism to blame, or partly to blame, for what happened in Rotherham?
Definitely. We had one of the local MPs, Dennis McShane, admitting that one of the things that made him reluctant to speak out about he'd heard rumours about what was going on, but he didn't raise public awareness of it because he was, as a lefty Guardian reader, he didn't want to tread on this sensitive issue. I think we need to distinguish between multiculturalism and immigration generally. Multiculturalism is a particular political philosophy which believes that instead of encouraging immigrant communities to integrate, they should keep their separate values. So I think most of us in this country are happy with ethnic diversity, but I think a lot of us would like the idea that these immigrant communities actually assimilated rather than had this sort of separatism.
All right. Is that how you distinguish multiculturalism, Yasmin?
Well, James is right in one sense that there are some places, or were for quite a long time, this idea of separate but equal. And I don't think any society works very well. But I think if you want to celebrate diversity, you also have to celebrate diversity and take on some of the challenges. Where he's absolutely not right is by saying that, you know, we haven't integrated. You can't not integrate. The Olympics was the example. But the Olympics was that celebration, the good side.
The good side. And, of course, we'll be looking at that, but looking at the dark side of it, and just going back to the Dennis McShane quote, there was a culture of not wanting to rock the multicultural community boat. Perhaps, yes, as a true Guardian
reader. So who do you blame here? Do you blame Dennis McShane?
I don't want to raise that too hard.
No, no, I think I want to say, do you blame Dennis McShane for not doing his job properly? For really, you know, every time the people are in trouble, they're shoving blame onto those families out there and whatever. Actually, it's your fault. You should have done something.
This is my concern, and actually, I saw an article by you, James. Against my better nature, I'm quite fond of you, but this article said multiculturalism raped and drugged those girls.
I did write that, and I'm proud of it.
No, well, and I'm going to tell you why that's so indefensible.
And I'm going to defend myself.
Because you are letting off the hook the men responsible for the sexual abuse and rape of little girls. They are responsible alone for what they did.
So you
and
think
equally,
multiculturalism is a get-out clause?
Absolutely. Can I just answer it quickly, because I haven't finished that point. What we have are those in authority being able to get off the hook for their failure to listen to girls and women coming forward on the basis, what a convenient excuse to say, oh, it wasn't because we weren't doing our job properly, it was PC culture stopping us.
And none of those who said that, including Dennis McShane, are here to defend themselves.
We're arguing the same point, but from different angles. The fact is that Rotherham is just the tip of the iceberg. Rotherham is a fairly small town, and yet 1,400 girls were groomed and raped on an organised way by these gangs. This is going on across the country. There have been cases in Telford, there have been cases in Ipswich, there have been cases in Oxford. This is a massive, massive problem. It has been going on for years, and the local authorities have known about this. The local police have known about this. They did nothing. Can you imagine if this had been white men grooming and raping black girls? It would not have happened.
Well, actually, just answer that.
That's a really key point. Listen, because what this has in common with Savile, the Jimmy Savile horrific events that happened there, Max Clifford, Rolf Harris, was that people in authority did not believe girls and women who came forward with tales of sexual abuse, stories of sexual abuse and rape. Now, in this country, very few people who are sexually abused and raped ever come forward. To rape and sexually abuse in Britain in 2014 is to get away with it. Very few come forward, and those who do are often met with a wall of disbelief. All right. That is what we have to take on.
I want to hear from someone from Rotherham now. We're joined by Mubin Hussain from the Rotherham Muslim Group, who joins us from our Sheffield studio. Good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. These men have been referred to as Asian, Pakistani, Muslim. Which identity, if any, is most relevant in this case?
I think first and foremost we shouldn't get into this race debate or, you know, on this issue, because what we tend to forget is the 1,400 children who are the victims of these crimes, and you forget, you know, the prosecutions and the convictions that still haven't been made on this, you know, on the streets of Rotherham. I think this is the debate we need to have. I think the main debate is to have, you know, these children were from the most deprived areas of Rotherham. These were the working class community which was ignored and many a times treated like criminals. Another issue we have, and, you know, looking into this report, if it is true about the allegations are coming out, I question what kind of third world corrupt country are we living in, in which the police are aware of these incidents that are taking place, and, you know, these children are taken out of care, sexually exploited, criminally attacked, and then made a deal, you know, with the police to give back the children but not being convicted for the crime.
But Mabin, the suggestion is by some that the very segregation and the fact that a lot of Pakistanis live in the same area of Rotherham. I mean, there's sort of 3% Pakistanis, and they all live in 3 wards in Rotherham, which is a tiny, tiny concentration. That very segregation led to the fact that they could get away with these sorts of crimes, and nobody wanted to intervene for fear of being called racist.
No, but where did this mandate come from? Where did the people in authority consult the community? We had a press conference and a community conference, the first time you've seen on these types of issues, and the community came out loud. The community in Rotherham is united against this stance, but before anything, before we get into these wider debates, we want to have convictions and prosecutions by the court of law for these individuals that haven't been charged, and we want, for the 1,400 victims, we want, you know, justice for these individuals and these children, and we want people to come out and speak out, and also resignations from these individuals and these authorities that knew about these actions.
Well, everybody's agreeing with you here on that, Mabin. Everybody's agreeing with you here. I just want to raise one thing. Lord Ahmed, who's writing in the Mail on Sunday, who's from Rotherham, is very critical of mosques failing to give moral leadership. I don't know whether you've seen what he said. Many mosques are dangerously cut off from the rest of society, rooted in the ancient world, not the modern one. This approach is reflected by the way imams behave. Many rarely mix with other faiths, which is wrong. And is that part of the institutional problem here?
OK, on this specific issue, I believe we have a problem in society with a certain type of criminals who are from this idea of, you know, these are men who have this mindset about women and this rape culture. But yeah, from different societies, we can approach it in different senses. I believe the Pakistani community, not society, the community has an issue with a taboo, or it doesn't talk about sexualization, and this is something that we need to talk about and we need to come up with. I completely agree with, you know, strategies that are coming out from Rotherham, like Yvette Cooper, the Shadow Home Secretary, coming out and suggesting that we need to have mandatory reports on child sexual.
I just think one thing, and I'm a Muslim and my father was from a Pakistani background. One thing, and it's not just within the Pakistani, but among Asians in general, we do have a problem. In that, hang on, can I just say,
society in general, we need to look at these debates.
Can I speak? Don't be macho with me, please. Let me speak, OK? I think we have a problem. Too many times, and I've heard it with my own ears, in my own families, don't be like white girls, OK? This idea that white culture is somehow, that we are purer. Yeah, and we should change that. We need to address some of those problems. That doesn't mean I say the rapists are all because of that, but we are not addressing our attitudes towards white
people. So you're talking about a misogyny within a certain community.
I could just come in there. What I agree with you is that we understand, we're not here in Rotherham denying that large members of these individuals were from the Pakistani community. We are not denying that there is a certain type of problem. We understand that. But what we are saying, if we deal with it on race lines, like even, you know, the Deputy Commissioner for the Children saying that we will let other individuals away with these types of actions. We need to see it as a criminal matter, and we need to discuss it within the communities as well. But before we get there, on the case of Rotherham, we need to find justice for the 1,400 who haven't had justice, and the criminal convictions that haven't been made yet. And I agree, we need to deal with this type of stuff, but before we get there and make this a racist issue and, you know, deal with it on race lines, we as a community need to stand together and stamp this out collectively, wherever it happens.
All right, let me bring in Abhijit here. Is it the failure of authorities, is it the failure of institutions, or is it the failure of multiculturalism that has led to things?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. I think that when you have huge amounts of people coming into the country from countries where women are not treated the same as men, they're less equal. There are instances of child marriages when a woman is an object. You will get these things happening, and that is because we assume that equality of gender is automatic in every immigrant that comes into this country. That is not true. And unless we're assertive about our own culture, namely that women are equal to men, these kind of things will carry on happening. But the failure of institutions and governments is that we have actually funded faith groups actively who propose that women are less equal than men.
So do you think...
So we are culpable in that sense.
Culpable in the sense that authorities have promoted segregation. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, I think what the multiculturalism multiculturalism has not worked. What we need now is a secular constitution where faith-based groups do not get central government funding, because that leads to a divisive society. We are a culture based on philosophy, self-determination and free will, where people reason things out on what their values are and what rights and liberties they have. People who come in from the developing world are not based, we assume they are based on those cultures, on those norms, but
Owen,
they're not. And
I know you're keen to come in, but I just want to get some views from the London Mela, and Bobby Friction's there. What are they saying, Bobby?
Hi, Sean. Thanks a lot. I'm joined here at the London Mela by Ajay Chabra, who's the artistic director of the Mela. And back in the studio, Ajay, they're saying that multiculturalism is a burden on English or on British society. Is that your experience?
Not at all. Multiculturalism is absolutely crucial and exists and is in the here and now. I mean, this event, the London Mela, has been going on for 12 years. There are very few opportunities in public spaces for people of different faiths, of different ethnicities, of different genders, of different social economic backgrounds to come together. And this is one of, I mean, the events of the week, have shown that the events which put a smile on people's faces are that much more important.
Now, that's all great, and I'm sure everyone's going to have a great time today, but what about the argument that multiculturalism is actually only pushing one culture, maybe Asian culture, one way into Britain?
Multiculturalism has to go both ways. Multiculturalism is all about removing ignorance. It's about education. It's about celebrating together. And there are fewer and fewer opportunities where multiculturalism is about joy, fun, happiness, and all of those things that bring people together. All of those things that keep us, it's the glue in the fabric of our society.
I'm also joined by Jay Kumar, choreographer, whose dancers are here today. Jay, do you fly the flag for multiculturalism?
I definitely do. I have fabulous non-Asians come along to my dance class and my dance students. Some of them are non-Asian, as you can see, dancing in the background. At my events, many non-Asians come, English, West Indian, every kind, and it's all a great fun.
All right, thanks a lot, Jay. Back to you, Sean.
Thank you very much, Bobby. It strikes me that there's a distinction here between what people think of as multiculturalism. So, James, you're saying what multiculturalism means is lots of cultures together, but all maintaining separate identities, whereas you're talking about integration.
Yeah, look, multiculturalism does not mean segregation. I speak as someone who passionately opposes faith.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Absolutely,
it does.
Can I define
and then
what I'm saying?
It's like Alice in Wonderland. You're making up your definition.
No, I'm not. Multiculturalism does not mean segregation. I speak as someone who passionately opposes faith schools, which segregate children according to the religious beliefs of their parents. It does not mean indulging practices overwhelmingly rejected by our communities, like female genital mutilation, which my newspaper campaigned against, which I'm very proud of this year. It just means people can have multiple identities. You can be Welsh and you can be British. It means you can be a Muslim Londoner who supports West Ham.
You can, insofar as those identities don't conflict.
Exactly.
But sometimes the cultural norms of two different societies, different cultures, are juxtaposed to the extent they cannot be compatible. And that's where we've got a problem. For example, the treatment of women is a classic example of that. Freedom of speech, where it might cause offence, is another example where
you acknowledge
the West
that
views
problem
that as different.
exists, that there are different practices, that there is that segregation. No, and while integration exists, also segregation.
There shouldn't be segregation. I'd just come up with an example how we get rid of that, but it does also mean having universal values. Look, Muslim Labour MPs, the majority of them, voted for same-sex marriage in this country, unlike most Christian Tory MPs. Those are universal ideas, beliefs, which everybody from all communities can subscribe to. See themselves as Muslim or Christian or anything.
Where is the problem here?
We're talking about a political philosophy which our culture has indulged since at least the 1970s with Roy Jenkins and his cell-weight diversity obsession. And it's got completely out of hand, as some of us predicted it would. So, for example, you've got social workers who have been schooled in multicultural philosophy, don't judge other cultures, which is why you had cases like that poor girl Victoria Clambier being killed because they were afraid to judge other people's cultures. And this is a problem.
Well, we don't know the
actually,
reasons
white
behind
children have died and been killed by their parents, and the social workers
baby
didn't intervene. It's not...
That's a different issue.
No, why is it a different... They didn't judge. They didn't make judgments.
We're talking about multiculturalism.
No, it isn't.
Hello.
The point Yasmin's trying to make is that they didn't make a judgment on race.
white
It's not
children
because you
either.
come
Let's
from
have
a
an all-out
particular
war against
place.
sexism, homophobia, misogyny in all our communities.
Okay.
And that's not a contradiction with multiculturalism. It really isn't.
OK, thank you all for that.